Okay, so this will call the meeting to order at 6:01. If you could stand, I invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, roll call. So we do have
Any requests and absence,
we have Christy. We do,
that was prearranged.
and we have Michael.
Yes,
Cool. So I would entertain a motion to excuse Annie.
I would move to excuse Annie McGill.
Second.
All right, first and a second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All righty. Hopefully you guys all got the latest agenda earlier in the day. All right, consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 What am I missing? What am I
I
missing?
think we got it.
Okay, I
Aye.
think I'm just gonna start doing a call for the vote. This is getting a little rough. All right, public comment period. Is there anyone here in the gallery that would like an opportunity to address the council? Sir, don't forget to introduce yourself.
Paul Spencer, give a quick update on the pool situation and bring up something for potential discussion about funding. So we're aiming for roughly an April 1st opening. We've got most things lined up. Got 2 quotes on insurance. We've got the last final little stage of our lease negotiation with the school district who actually owns the pool. And it's a very convenient, very friendly lease, so we're in good shape on that. We had a little setback on pool manager discussion, but now we're part of a trade organization called Washington Recreation and Parks Association, and they've got a job fair coming up here shortly, so we'll see what we can do about that, and we'll start to launch a search here in the next week or so. We have a special meeting here next Wednesday at 7:30 to cover some of these things we're talking about, and hopefully we'll put some of that to bed then. In the meantime, I wanted to raise one thing. The city budget has $40,000 for the pool in it. And what I'd like to suggest is, because the question has been raised about double dipping, you might say, with Stevenson taxpayers. So we talked this over in the board meeting here a week ago. We'd like to suggest that we'd like to get the $40,000 for basically startup expenses, including the insurance and the manager's salary and that sort of thing for the first few months until we've got tax money and revenue starting to come in. And we'd like to suggest that we could do that as a loan rather than a gift, or whatever you want to call it, an expense on the part of the city. We'd like to suggest that we could pay it back on 2 years, maybe 3 payments starting next October, and then following April, and then the last payment at least by the end of the year in 2023. And I just wanted to start that discussion and see whether that's something that we require a workshop or resolution, or do we simply line it up?
That's a good question.
So in the end, it'll be a contract.
Right, I mean, because the 40,000 in the past has been with a contract with the park district, right? Right.
Could you do an intergovernmental loan?
Well, it would be a interlocal agreement, but instead of just being a grant, it would be a loan instead. So we just have to redo the contract to be a loan rather than a grant.
And then would you plan on paying this back then through the revenues you get through the tax base?
And revenue in general.
Yes,
In other
yes,
words, it's all one
yes.
big kitty as far as.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's an awesome idea. Well, thank you. I like that.
Great. So yeah,
So
we'll put it on
yeah.
the agenda for
For
next month.
February, yeah. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
very good, thank
Thanks
you.
for all your work, all of you.
Huh?
Thank you for all your guys' work on
Well,
getting
We're
that
trying.
up and going. Thank you.
Anybody else?
There's someone with their hand up.
Oh, okay.
Whoever has the, yeah, go ahead and talk.
Hi. Good evening. This is Mary Rapar. I'm Stevenson. And I just have a couple of things. As y'all may remember, it's been only a week, but we did have a snow event. And fortunately, it could have been a lot worse. I hope that when you all do the after action reporting, that we don't just say, oh, how well we did, but there were some things that could have been done better. And the first thing that comes to mind is all the fire hydrants that were covered with snow. Usually catastrophes don't just happen one at a time so that you can deal with them. If there have been fires, those fire hydrants would not have been easy to find. For one thing, they were under 4 feet or 5 feet of snow in some cases because of the snow that was piled on them by the snow plows. So I think something that I have seen in my home state of Michigan is there are flags put on poles put up by the fire hydrants so people know where they are just in case something happens and the fire hydrant is needed. And the second thing is, again, this wasn't a really horrible event, but it could have been a lot worse. And we're only in January, and usually February is the worst month. If a state of emergency was declared, why wasn't reverse 911 implemented to let people know what the heck was going on? And if there was a number to call, if instead of just calling 911, the emergency number for the emergency. We pay for a emergency manager. The office is right underneath the sheriff's office. And if an emergency is declared, there should be a central number to call if somebody's got an emergency. The other thing is all the sidewalks in town were horrible. You had to walk in the street. There were some owners who went out there and shoveled, but for the most part, it was dangerous. You had to walk on 14 in order to get anywhere. And I tried shoveling my sidewalk until the snowplow berms became so iced over I couldn't even lift a shovel. I realized that it's a problem, but downtown is your core commercial area, and the Downtown Association can at least invest in a snow blower and get on top of that so people can walk around downtown. I would like to see something in the future for a future snow event that we do snow removal too as we're plowing the snow. Yes, I realize we're a very small city with a small staff. I hear it's gotten smaller, but you know, those are things that you can plan for with dump trucks and front loaders and other things so that you get it out of the way faster instead of waiting for it to melt. It didn't necessarily have to melt. We were just darn lucky that it did. So those are just a few of what I saw, and my frustration with the berms knows no bounds, and it's really time to think about snow removal too as we're plowing along. Thank you very much.
Mary? So yes, it was a discussion Monday morning right away, is that if there was an emergency, there were quite a few responders that would have had a hard time responding because of all of the snow. That it was an unusual amount of snow in an unusually short period of time. So finding a way to prioritize keeping the roads open and then trickling down from there And that absolutely was a point of discussion, is what are we going to do with this snow as we go? But as it turned out, there was so much snow falling so quickly. We did have to prioritize where we could start sending our staff. And once we did get caught up, then that was the very next thing that we started on, was removal, sidewalks, parking. So yeah, we felt the pain too, and we absolutely will continue to have discussions along these lines. Anybody else? So real quick before we move on, I kind of alluded to this at our last meeting. It was just a special meeting, but since we do have 2 new council members, I wanted to reiterate that to take a look at your agenda. If there is a need for a motion, then that motion will be spelled out with the line item. There is also a 2-touch system here. Anything that we're going to enact, we look at it twice, or we have the opportunity to look at it twice. If we feel strongly enough about something that's been presented, we absolutely can approve an ordinance or a resolution as it happens the first go around. But we do have the opportunity to solicit and further input on the second month. Don't use that as a reason to not come prepared. We meet just once a month. So spend a little bit of time, as much time as you need before the meeting, to become acquainted with the materials. Because we only meet once a month, there's a lot of discussion at the meeting. If you have a question about what is going on or the particular items on the agenda, pick up the phone or send an email. Ben, Liana, and then when we get our new Public Works Director, we'll be happy to answer your questions so that we can have an even more robust discussion at City Council. So any questions on any of those items, specifically Christy and Michael?
Nope, I'm good.
In addition, there are going to be some terms, and we're already looking at one coming up here in a second, that you might not be familiar with. So I will try to be cognizant of that and explain some of these terms as we go. But then on the other hand, if you are up to speed and you don't need that extra description, I'm fine with that too. Okay, so first up is a presentation from the SDA in addition with the county and the city. So this is discussing the Park Plaza. Let me pull up my notes here, because I'm actually part of this presentation, as it turns out.
So Kelly, I've unmuted you. Sadie, if you want to speak, just raise your hand. And then Bob is in the audience here.
So the first thing that I want to do is recap how we got how we got here today. So what did we just say? 2014, 2015?
Yeah.
Several years ago, several business leaders, community leaders, we watched a series of webinars. It was called 20 Ingredients to a Vibrant Downtown. One of the items that was brought up, one of those 20s, was a public meeting space, a gathering place. And then we really liked that idea, and then discovered that, hey, there might be something that we can do with the lawn in front of the courthouse. So it was rallying around that idea, and it was one of the driving forces for the creation of the SDA, the Downtown Association. And the SDA has been moving this project along the entire time. So part of this process was, came to City Council and said, would you be willing to maintain the plaza if it was built? And City Council said, what's it going to look like? And we said, not really sure yet. So solicited the help of Pat Hood, Jeff Carlson, and they created 3 different designs using incrementally more of the courthouse lawn as part of the project. There were quite a few engagement processes, 5 public meetings, 2 community surveys, and several individual meetings. The community overwhelmingly decided they would like the one that uses the most of the courthouse lawn, we call the Looking Forward plan. That's the plan that you'll see on the large billboard that's on the courthouse lawn now. So Since then, we have been in negotiations with the county for an MOU for the use of the land and our responsibility for maintaining the plaza. There's been quite a bit of donations towards that. You know, there's been some private firms, public firms that have donated money specifically for the plaza. In addition, we asked for Representative Chris Corey's support we asked for $1.5 million from the legislature. They said that this is a great idea and we'd love to give you money, but lopped off one of the zeros. So $150,000 instead of the 1.5. But we are between donations in this, line item, $450,000. So does that sound about right, Kelly?
It depends on how you look at it. I would say collectively, including the LTAC funds, the lodging funds allocated, we have about 600,000.
So there has been quite a bit of work done with the SDA being the main advocate in driving the project. Some questions arose from, who was it that Department of Commerce says there's a couple of sticking points on a nonprofit being in charge of a project when there's public funds involved. So they said we should take a look at changing who is the lead on this project. So Kelly, if you could jump in and detail what those different sticking points are to figure out why we are having this discussion today.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly O'Malley McKee, and I'm the executive director for the Stevenson Downtown Association. And to expand a little bit on what Scott shared, back in, I think it was 2019, that the Washington State Legislature did award us this $150,000 grant through Representative Chris Corey. And then because of COVID, that's been pushed along. So we still have a little bit of time to be able to access that. But one of the recent conversations with Department of Commerce, who administers this and other government funding, mentioned that we, as the nonprofit, 501c3 nonprofit, can't necessarily satisfy some of their requirements, because in particular relating to the property itself. So we don't own the property, we don't have a deed of trust, title insurance, lots of things. And so they recommended to maybe amend this contract with a new grantee in place instead of the Stevenson Downtown Association, which is currently listed on the contract. They recommended probably a government entity, the county or the city. And they also recommended that we amend the description of the project on this paperwork, because currently as it reads, it's very descriptive, because it was kind of the sales pitch, the initial sales pitch for this grand project. So it's very detailed. And by having that many details on it, we didn't realize that we have to actually have that entire description fully funded before they release any funds for the project. So since this is $150,000, it's something that we want to be able to tap into, sooner than later, and not have to wait for this $1.5 million or more project to be fully funded before we can use the $150,000. So there are two things here, and primarily why we're here today is to talk through, propose the city taking on the project lead, or being not only the project lead, but being listed as this grantee, because this lays also the groundwork for future government funding. For instance, when we apply for the RCO grant, that's the Recreation and Conservation Office at the state level. When we apply for a large grant from them in the next few years, we would face the same issue. So that's kind of why we are here today, is because of this recent knowledge that we derived that as we're looking at to award this, or I'm sorry, get access to this $150,000 grant from the state.
So go ahead, Kelly.
I was just going to say that so basically we're asking the city to be listed as a grantee. We are asking the city to take the lead in managing the Park Plaza project. However, there's a huge caveat that I wanted to just double emphasize, that while if this were to happen, the Stevenson Downtown Association would be a continued partner in this project. It's not like we're just handing it off and see you later. We would be continually providing private fundraising support and advocacy support and communications and presentations and all of that. We just feel that at this point, now that we've got the ball rolling and now we have some traction here, that now is probably the best time, since we're already working on an MOU with the county and the city for taking over the plaza management after the fact, that perhaps now is the time to be able to take this on right now as well. I know that Liana and Scott might have some other items to add there.
So working with the county, the SDA has applied twice for the RCO grant. It's every 2 years. The first time we applied, we ranked very high and almost were awarded or extended some money. 2 years later, we applied again and didn't score as well. And even the person that was helping us through the process was surprised that it swung so wildly. The next time around, the next grant opportunity is March.
It's this year, but we would need to have an approved parks plan by March.
So we're not ready to submit an application or We're not ready to ask to be part of that grant process this year, just because for a variety of timing issues. We're in the middle of a multi-million-dollar wastewater treatment plant upgrade. There are some other caveats that will go along with this as part of that application, one of them being a parks plan. And we are in no position to allocate bandwidth to satisfy some of these, the time commitment. Now, in 2 years, we will be. We're going to be finished or darn near finished with the wastewater treatment plant upgrades, and our bandwidth will be quite a bit better, and we'll tie up a couple of loose ends for us. So the city will be in a position to allocate some time towards this project. And we've had a couple of meetings between the city, the SDA, and the county. Now, I also wanted to point out there, if you look in our packet here, several bullet points of items that have already taken place as far as moving this project along. When we presented this idea to both the city and the county, the first thing we heard, oh, that again. What makes this plan any different than any other plan that's still sitting on a shelf someplace? So we have been trying to prove that this is a good plan and that there's motivation behind it. And there is a great deal of, there have been some very key items that we've accomplished. And none of this could be possible without a really great partnership between the three, the SDA, the county, and the city. And if you look through that list, using the resources of the county, several key things have happened. And part of that is having DAP come down and take a look at potentially adding the courthouse to the registrar of historical buildings.
Right.
So really wanted to make sure to highlight not only the narrative of how we got here, but this project does have traction. It does have wheels. It's not something that's just languishing and getting dusty on a shelf. So really what we're running up to here is to get a general consensus from the council, because we're not nothing to vote on tonight. But we just want you guys to feel good about the city taking over a project like this at this time, knowing that we will have the bandwidth and we are very excited about the project and would like to see it move forward. So does anybody from the county have anything else to add in? I know we've got Bob here in the room, we've got Sadie there.
Yeah, I think I'd like to jump in and just say that
Hang on,
we as,
introduce yourself first, Bob.
okay, Bob Hamlin, Community County Commissioner, and I'd just like to jump in and say, we as the property owners have been doing our due diligence so that this project could go forward. And that's why Sadie and Tim are here to kind of explain the process of going through the archaeological studies to make sure that there is going to be an okay and sending letters out to the tribe. So I'll let Sadie talk about that and Tim can talk about what we've been doing so that as this project moves forward and we will have an MOU between the city and the county, we'll also probably have to do a leasehold deed or some other legal arrangements so that you guys will have the ability to receive funds from the state, which right now the SDA doesn't have that capability. And so then we get into the issue of the monies as the SDA has collected and how that will flow to the city and be able to complete this project as it goes forward over the next several years. So I'll let Tim and Sadie talk a little bit about what they've been doing so that the council can hear where we've gone in the last few years on this project.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yep.
This is Sadie Pettinger, and I'm just going to talk through some key points that we've been working on with the plaza. So first off, we started with our on-call consultant, Bell Design, and they came down and did a survey of the courthouse lawn. So all the existing conditions, so the property, the utilities, anything that could help us with the engineering design. So that was a key milestone. And then we worked with AINW, which is another on-call consultant for the county. And that stands for Archaeological Investigation Northwest, Inc. And so what they did is they came down and basically did a pedestrian and subsurface survey of the courthouse. They looked at the historic features of the courthouse, and all this information was compiled into a report. And this went up to DAP to get evaluated to see if the new proposed plaza project would have any adverse impacts on the courthouse lawn, the property itself. And DAP came back and said, yep, this project's going to have an adverse impact, so we're going to have to mitigate for it. So, and then also DAP figured out that the courthouse could be listed under the National Register of Historic Places, the NRHP. And they came down and did a presentation to the county to understand the ins and outs of listing the courthouse. So that's we're in contact with what the pros and cons would be for that. And so then with all this going on, we're now at the point where we're doing an MOU between DAP, Department of Commerce, SDA, the county, and now maybe the city. And so with everybody involved, it kind of, well, it made it so that the Department of Commerce says, hold on, we need more things in place. And so that's kind of where we're sitting right now with progress. But I'm happy to explain more details of everything that has gone on with all this process moving forward.
Do we have Tim?
I'm good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See Tim. Okay,
Might I jump in? This is Kelly again.
go for it.
I just wanted to thank you, Sadie. That was an excellent recap. And I just wanted to, I guess, summarize what that means about having an adverse impact on on the courthouse, just to to put aside any fears for, this project being completely blocked or something like that. That's not the case. Basically, what that means is that any project that would disturb the lawn as it is would only just impact their outlook on the historic significance of that courthouse building and its original design and architecture and landscape. It doesn't mean that by having this quote adverse effect or adverse impact that they're going to say no, that we can't have this. So it just means that because they value this building as a historic place and the lawn has always been there leading up to this historic building, that they would like to mitigate the impact by really being able to showcase this building. And that's therefore the offer of, well, could we list this on the National Register of Historic Places so that we can showcase the historic value of this building. So it's kind of like a dealing, like if we give you if we grant you this project, then can you do this for us? Because this is very important to us from a historical standpoint. And so it's not that they hate our design, it's literally just, it's digging into this lawn. So it has nothing to do with the design itself. I think I've recapped that enough. So, and if the county decides not to list this, so this is a current conversation at the county level of possibly listing the courthouse on the National Register. If they choose not to do that, then that's what Sadie referenced, is this MOU with DAP, and DAP stands for Department of Archaeological and Historic
Preservation.
Preservation. Jeez, I always mess up that name. It never fails. But that's where the MOU is underway to come up with, okay, well, if we can't possibly list it, then these might be some additional measures we can take. For instance, signage throughout the plaza when it's complete that really showcases the historic nature, or online information, or tours of the courthouse, or et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, sorry, I'll stop talking now.
Kelly, can I jump back in?
Yep.
Go for it.
So Tim would like to talk. He's having a hard time unmuting. His phone is 3909. If you could help him unmute. And good job at summarizing, Kelly.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, try that. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for your help, Sadie. Yeah, I just wanted to say a couple of things. And first of all, Kelly, I think you did a great job explaining where we are with DAHP and the fact that there would have to be mitigation for any project that is going on here, not only due to the historic nature of the courthouse, but also due to the steps that lead up to the courthouse. And I'm happy to answer any other questions about that. But the greater thing I wanted to say is I just wanted to give kudos to the city and to the SDA, because they have, as Scott mentioned, they have kept this project moving. This is not a project that is languished. This is a project that has faced challenges, but that has been responded to with just renewed effort from both the SDA and the city. And they just deserve a whole lot of credit for the amount of effort and ingenuity that they've used to move this forward, to get this money for the city and for this project. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
So, members of the council, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do. As far as the city taking ownership of the project, is this considered more of a formality Or it would it, and also the second part of that question is, what sort of staff time investment are we looking at?
Well, until I dig in, it's better than a formality, but it's definitely something we need to get a government entity behind this. And then I guess I don't really have a great answer for the amount of staff time, but it will be a city-run project. So we will be responsible for the project manager, and we'll still be working with the SDA will be a huge partner in the fundraising, and also part of our efforts for engagement with the community. So it'll be like any other project. Once we start getting closer to it, there will be, some more time, but by then we'll have the bandwidth to accommodate that.
I think so. Right now, with council consensus, it gets us moving forward on creating those agreements. And making sure that we have that infrastructure in place to keep the ball rolling and ensure we don't lose the funding. But right now, we don't anticipate a lot of staff time or involvement. But again, as the project picks up speed and as the other ones slow down, we hope that it'll kind of swap and take over.
Are you looking for a motion? What are you looking for, Scott? Just a
Consensus.
thumbs up?
Well, yeah, as far as if you're looking for consensus, my thoughts are anything that we can do to move this project forward, we should do. And when I say we, I mean the city, the SDA, and the county all working together. So yeah, whatever the roadblocks are, we need to find a way around them.
I love it.
Absolutely.
I've always been a fan. Let's do it.
The formal vote will take place when we have those agreements in place.
Right.
Presented.
I just have a quick question. That's okay.
Go for it.
So I remember back, I was in several meetings with the county when this was being brought up. I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. It's been quite a while. And at that time, it was, where's the funding going to come from? Is it the city? Is it the county? It's the county's property, but it's in the city, and it's going to benefit the city of Stevenson more than it's going to benefit the county. I'm just curious as to, I know it needs a government entity, but the choice of making the city the government entity that's going to oversee the project as opposed to making the county the government entity that's going to oversee the project, what the give and take there is.
Well, the the understanding has always been that it would be the city that would manage the plaza once it's complete, as it is here in the city. So that's kind of been guiding these decisions along the way, unless I.
And I would say that, this is Bob Hamlin. I would say that the county's view on this has been that we do have the property and we are in support of letting the city do something with it as far as creating a park. We ourselves are not in a position financially to want to take this on. We've done just the due diligence, like I say, that we needed to do to make sure that this could happen on the courthouse lawn. But long-term, this isn't a county priority. This benefits more to the downtown core of Stevenson, and it adds a vibrancy to the businesses in the area. So we have always looked at it as this is a great thing for the city of Stevenson. It really doesn't bring any kind of driving force from the county to make this project complete. So we're always in support, but we're not going to be in the driver's seat.
There's also another reason. The city has been using lodging tax funds for this project. As a result of the recent audit, it was pointed out that we need to manage the property or own the property in order to spend lodging tax funds on the property. And so in order to spend the funds that I think it's right now about $200,000 that we have in a contract, we haven't spent it all on the Park Plaza project, we would need to have management of that, and management of the project would suffice for that, in addition to the management of the project or management of the park after the fact.
Okay, and I'm totally for the project. I'm not against it. I was just, I remember the discussion, and I remember the county basically deferring to Stevenson, and they didn't ever get an explanation personally as to what the reasoning was behind that. So that's all I wanted to know.
And
So-
and if you don't mind, if I might, the county has been a partner in this and has, through an MOA, Sadie Stouter-Pettinger, our assistant county engineer, has just done a tremendous amount of work, groundwork to get us to where we are today. But I think this is the natural point to hand it off for the city to take the lead to really bring this to a reality.
I think one of the analogies that was used was the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, as far as the vehicle that's used to get us to the end result. And so now we're at a point of a change in transportation modes, so to speak.
So Michael, you got a thumbs up for the consensus part? All right.
Did you want to have Mary respond?
Mary?
Thank you very much. A very good discussion. I'm going to start where I think Sadie left off with the mitigation. I was in the meeting when the SHPO's office was down here, and that issue came up of the project and what it would do to impact the designation for the building. And if I recall correctly, and this is on audio, so anybody can go back and check this out. I believe the gentleman who was giving the presentation said that the smaller project would be a mitigation for the designation, not the huge project that was first proposed, where it covered the entire lawn. You know, as a Stevenson resident now and a member of the county, I think the county should also be putting some money into this project. This is the county seat. This is, although it's in the city of Stevenson, and the county really should not give up rights to that property. That's public property. It should remain public property, the county's property. And maybe the city can rent the surface rights. I don't know how that would work. But I don't think the city of Stevenson, with all its issues and the money that we seem to be spending left and right, can take on maintaining this project for the next 30 to 50 years. I think it's irresponsible to ask the city residents to pay for the maintenance. And until you have a good handle on the maintenance of whatever size project you're going to get, I don't think the citizens should support this. We have to know what we're going to be paying for in the future. And the other thing is everyone in the county will benefit from this project, whatever size it is, because this is the county seat. And the lawn, and some of you may poo-poo this, but the lawn represents a political venue for a lot of people. And it is also a gathering place for the public to voice their opinions about political matters. And that should be part of this discussion. And what kind of project you're going to get so that people can still gather there to pursue their political issues and that. So I would like you all to urge you all to do the cost-benefit analysis. Yes, this is a lovely project. Yes, it would be great to do it, but you're not going to make it as big as it was, because that was somewhere in the neighborhood of 3.5 million, if I remember Marie Perez's presentation correctly. And that's a lot of money. So maybe a smaller project that requires less mitigation, and both parties, the entities, the county and the city, sharing the maintenance costs. The city of Stevenson and its residents should not be paying for the maintenance costs of this project. Thank you.
So the scope of the project is going to be part of the journey as we move forward. That's not really what we're, how that shakes out is not this meeting. So that'll be part of as we're moving forward. How this maintenance is going to happen is going to be part of our parks plan that's already been addressed. That is something that's going to have to be completed before we can submit for our RCO grant. So this is something that has been identified as through public engagement that we are interested in the city at this point is interested in participating as the lead government agency moving forward, as evidenced by 4 city council members giving their approval. So thank you very much for your comments, Mary. We'll make sure that we address them as we move forward. Okay, any closing remarks from anyone? Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. All right, first up, our next up is public hearing.
Thank you, Bob.
See you later.
Thanks, Bob.
Appreciate you coming in.
Okay, I'd like to open the public hearing at right there, 6:46. Staff report.
So one of the projects that was identified in our sewer facilities plan, our general sewer plan and facilities plan, was an extension of our sewer line along Loop Road to connect up and access areas that are unsewered along the Kanaka Creek drainage. This project is, we call it the Main D Extension Project, and it is a part of that line. It is not the full line, but it covers a section of it. And one of the ways that we can potentially recoup some of the costs for that extension is to enter into a latecomers agreement. And what that does is any person that extends utilities, whether that be water lines, sewer lines, or roads, can enter into a latecomers agreement to recoup the costs of that infrastructure that does not impact them, but would impact a neighbor if that road were to, say, go by them, in essence.
To the extent of the benefit
Yes.
bestowed on them by the developer's expense. And in this case, the developer is the city.
And so as part of this agreement, or to set up the agreement, we need to set up what the reimbursement area is and what the calculation is for those costs for those property owners. The way that this was done, I mirrored, was it City of Tacoma? It was, I mirrored an example which to me seemed rational as well.
Tukwila,
Maybe it was Tukwila, where the costs will be, so half of the cost will be borne by the city, and that will be rolled into the system development charges, because this line can be extended even further to benefit other residents that aren't on just this section. And so people can connect to it after the fact and again, extend the line even further. The remaining half of the costs are then allocated on the property owners based on a combination of the frontage that they have, the property frontage that abuts the line or the street, as well as the area of their property. And part of the reason why we use the area of the property is because that determines developable space, whether it can be subdivided. There are other factors that go into the reason why we're using the area of the property and not just solely the frontage. It's not a street. It's a different type of utility. So that is the reason for the way that the calculation came about. And public notices were mailed, certified mail to all of the property owners in accordance with the statute on, I think it was the last week in December. And
I think it's important to note also, thanks, Leon, but the charge to the property owners only accrues when they connect to the system. So they don't have to pay anything up front. It's when they make the decision to connect, whether it's because they've had a failure of a septic system, or they want to a new construction, or they're gonna, subdivide or something like that, that they need to connect to that sewer system, that's when they pay. And mind you, there's a timeout after, I think we picked 20 years, after which we can't collect it. So if they can last that long, I suppose they can get away with it. But so anytime within that 20-year window, if they connect to that line, they pay.
Okay, so.
And it would be these charges in addition to system development charges. So
Correct.
this is above and beyond your system development charges.
Okay,
So before we dig into, council discussion, any more on the,
No more on the staff report.
okay, so this is the part where we solicit comments from the public. Richard?
No,
Very good.
should I stand up and?
If you have some thoughts, yep, introduce yourself and let us know what you think.
Richard Impson, business owner, the past 2 years, and residential construction company owner just starting. I'm interested to see about the plaza, whether or not there will be any recruiting from residential construction companies in the area. And
Hang on.
potential.
Hang on, Richard, let me stop you right there. This is for the main D.
Okay.
So, yeah, we can, actually, that would be a better discussion the next time we have, call it Liana or something. But for this part, we're talking about the sewer extension.
I did talk with one of the property owners, and they didn't want to submit anything in writing, but they did state that they're not interested in connecting, and I said, that's fine. So, and then another property owner as well, same response. So,
Can I just say that, I mean, I got it also, but.
So are you gonna do this as hang on, Christy, is this as a public comment or is this a council member comment?
As a public comment. I
Okay,
just.
I see you're on the list.
What?
You're in the unique situation of having something to say as a member of the public, but then also be able to weigh in as a city council member. So
It is
so feel free.
unique.
We're doing public comment now. So if you have a public comment, dig in.
It's not, I just was asking about the charges, because I mean, I'm at the top of the list. I think I've got probably the most frontage, but is it 50% that I'm paying and 50%?
right, so it was split in the chart, half of the costs, so a quarter of the cost of the project was allocated on the property frontage. And then the other quarter of the project costs were allocated based on property square footage.
Okay, I can see that. Thank you. Okay, I'm back to council.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up. I would like to close the public hearing at 6:54. Now, council, who wants to go first?
I'll jump in. Yeah,
Hang on,
so.
hang on, Paul. Go ahead, Paul. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, my question is, in addition to system development fees, what would the average, just, kind of range of costs be, additional costs be to the property owner?
Look, is that what that list is?
I honestly don't know what the,
They'd have to connect. I mean, their service line would be on them.
right, so if you're
Yeah,
within,
sure.
if the structure's within 300 feet of the sewer line, you would have to connect. I don't know what the current cost is per linear foot
Okay,
for sewer installation. Anything I'd give you would be probably from like 2017, which
Of course.
is woefully out of.
but as far as the normal system development charge, of course, is on them, and then bringing the sewer line from their home to the sewer is on them. Is there any additional charge to them that's not accounted to?
Not for sewer, not for
Okay.
sewer. No, so
Okay,
let me rephrase that. They would need to connect to the line. So with this project, we're doing stub outs. And they would then be responsible for paying for the sewer connection from the property line to their home.
Okay.
Which,
And Liana, is this as new people build, so like, we have some empty lots, if they build, then if they're within 30 feet or 300 feet, they have to connect. Are the latecomer fees on the same formula as these ones that we have in front of us?
for
Where's
the
that-
empty lots,
Yeah, the percentage of cost.
right, so if there's an empty lot on that list, if a person purchases that lot and wants to connect to sewer, they would have to pay whatever the cost allocation is for that lot
Gotcha.
Within
in
the
addition,
20-year window.
within a 20-year
So
window.
these grayed out ones are where there's no,
So the grayed out ones is a unique situation. The grayed out ones are all of the properties combined that are on Thomas Street. So Thomas Street is only having one lateral from the main. So we're not going up Thomas Street
You're
and
just putting
then
a stub out there.
and doing stub outs on each individual lot. So the way that I calculated those fees was for the property owners on Thomas Street, that is the percentage allocation for if you wanted to connect there, that's the cost to connect there.
So
And
that
then
would-
you would need to bring it up Thomas Street and
Yes.
allocate it to then each of those properties.
So if, for example, you said you talked to one landowner that does not plan on connecting.
Right.
If they connect within that 20-year window, then these are the fees that they would be charged, correct?
Right.
Whether they sign this agreement or not.
They don't sign it.
They don't sign it, okay.
They have an appeal right. If they exercise it, if they don't exercise it, they're barred from complaining about it.
Okay,
And that's what the public hearing is for,
okay,
is for them to express their,
okay.
so isn't that what we're here for, is to approve what you presented here, the reimbursement area and the calculation?
Mhm.
That's what we're asking for the vote on.
That's correct.
There's no heavy-handed, you will join.
Right.
But if you build a new house,
well, that agreement is coming.
Okay.
So, but, and again, it will bind those properties to this calculation.
so step one.
This is step one.
You ready to make a motion?
I would entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'd like to move to approve the Main D Extension Lake Covers Agreement reimbursement area and assessment calculation as presented with changes as discussed.
Second,
For the,
There's no change. Are there any changes? I give you two options for the motion.
Well,
So
As presented.
as presented.
as presented.
Okay.
Was that a second by you, Christie?
yes, it was.
All right, first and second, any other discussion? I'm gonna do a roll call for vote. So give me an aye or a nay. So Dave,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Christie,
Aye.
and Michael.
Aye.
All right, unanimous. Thank you very much. It's an unhappy cat.
You get the vet?
All right, updates, Leona.
We've been busy, so I have not had time to give you a memo, a staff memo in the packet for the sewer plant update. We do have interviews lined up for the wastewater treatment plant operator position, and that position, the last interview will be Monday, and we hope to make a decision that day to, again, get that ball rolling on filling that position. And in talking with Department of Ecology, there's multiple ways that we can go about filling the gap, because we did not receive anyone that had a level 2 operator certification. And so there are options for us to, again, bridge that gap, because we won't have a level 2 operator on staff. And they're fully aware. We're keeping them in the loop as far as our progress goes on all of this. And so far, we're okay. When the storm hit, and we were expecting this, when the storm hit and then we had the rainfall shortly after, we were anticipating not only flooding, but potential overflow events with our lift stations. That's the whole reason why we're doing this $5 million lift station project, is because of flooding event that occurred in 2017. And as anticipated, our pumps were not able to keep up at Kanaka and Rock Creek lift stations. And so for about 3 hours on January 6th, we did have to release the overflow valves. And then we were able to we were able to catch up then after those 3 hours. And we notified Ecology that same day and are working on complying with all of the reporting requirements as a result of that event. And again, it's due to the infiltration and inflow and all of the rain combined with snow melt all at once. And we've been able to keep up so far with the slower melt. And I know it's not fun for the snow to stick around longer, but it does help us with our lift stations and our treatment plant. The other, we are having some issues at the fairgrounds lift station though. We had it cleaned out and are just working on trying to get that back up and functioning. There are 2 pumps. We're only having problems with one of the pumps. So it is still working, but we are continuing to troubleshoot problems in that. And so it does take more staff time with the limited staff that we do have. What else? We did receive we received the first invoice and the first payment request for the construction phase for the Rock Creek lift station, Cascade Interceptor, and Rock Creek Stormwater project. And so that was paid, and you'll see that in the payment packet. So that's kind of exciting to get that ball rolling. And the main D extension that we were just talking about is out to bid. The bids are due on February 9th. And we're working on doing this all electronically, and we'll see how this goes. The city of Pasco did it, and so we're following their process. I believe the contractors that submit their bids will need to provide their bond. I will have to have a paper bond, but just because I have a bond doesn't necessarily mean that they will be submitting an electronic bid. But it does, especially with everything that's going on, it does make the process smoother and more. Hopefully we'll get more bids that way as well.
Cool.
And then depending on how that goes and the timing of the interviews that we have for other positions, we hope to then bid for other projects shortly thereafter. We are waiting until about mid-February before we decide whether or not we go to bid for the wastewater treatment plant project. And that is to see if we can get that $2.5 million of federal direct appropriations. No word on that yet as far as the progress of where that stands. And I think that is all I have so far on the. Any questions? Any questions? Yeah, no, staff has been doing a great job with managing it all. So during the snowstorm, that first day on Monday, all staff, everyone on hand. We even had some staff come that had recently left and help out, and we were able to get some contractors as well to help out. And the following day, we needed to dedicate someone to the plant. So our staff of 3 was then down to staff of 2 to do the same work and to clean up. And so while I understand the challenges with regards to all of the snow and trying to get it out of the way, there are other priorities that we had to work on, and that's where it's at. We're also waiting for Instapipe to come and finish slip lining School Street. They came right before the storm. And I think with the recent COVID surges, there's some challenges. So we're working on rescheduling that one. And that will also help with our I&I problem, but in a different location. So that's all I have.
Great, thank you so much. All right, Park Plaza contract, I don't see anything in the packet, so this is, we're just.
So yeah, I wasn't able to get an updated version. They're still discussing with the commissioners on the language. I was hoping to get it. I didn't get it today. So that's where it stands.
Good. Perfect.
Okay.
So take a moment and catch up our two new city council members, what we're talking about.
So the American Recovery Plan Act, or ARPA, is a bucket of money that the federal government gave to all cities, all states, cities, counties in the United States to spend to help spur economic development. There are restrictions on how it can be used. It can be used for water projects. It can be used for sewer projects. It can be used for broadband. The broadband conditions are very specific. It has to be new technology and certain bandwidth. And it can also be used in some cases for economic development. In the last meeting, Kelly gave, or sorry, in the November meeting, October meeting, goodness, sorry, it's been a while. October meeting, Kelly gave a really good presentation, and there are some slide decks in the council packet that state what those specific codes are for spending it on economic development. You can also use it on public health measures that address COVID. We don't have a public health department, so none of those options are included necessarily in our packet. So in the packet, the list that is there is a result of the meetings from June, July, and October of last year, and lists some water projects, sewer projects, the projects that were identified as a result of the SDA presentation, and also further discussions at the council meeting. There are some items that we don't know how much, that just didn't have a dollar amount. And so those were listed there, but again, they don't have a dollar amount just yet. We haven't gone through the process to get an estimate. One of the ideas was to spread the money out as best possible. And so you can pick and choose projects. You can partially fund projects. You have options. And the idea was to come up with a slate of options to then present to the public to get their input on.
And I think that we actually kind of tabled it, right? So that we could get our new council members on board.
Right.
But the discussion seemed to be more towards an influx of economic development opportunities, as opposed to like some of the, like the wastewater treatment plant, water line, etc. That seemed to be kind of the feel for it. But so what you're asking for is, are we looking for that we feel that these are some good projects that we can then get further input from through engagement?
Correct. One of the things, so the School Street Waterline project and the Vector truck are two items that, for example, the School Street Waterline project, it doesn't score very highly on any of the loan applications that we submit to the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. And the Vector truck, it's also challenging to get loans or any grants for those items. And so that's the reason why those items are put on the list, is because it is difficult to find alternative sources of funding for those. And in the for School Street Waterline, it is a very challenging water line. It is an older line that tends to experience a lot of leaks in the past. And so that is why it is on the list. It is on our, as our highest priority list for being replaced after we do this loop section here.
Does that feed the elementary school? That line, do you know?
That is a very good question. I know it goes by the elementary school, but I don't know if it feeds it. It probably does,
Thank you.
but I'm not certain on that.
No, it doesn't feed the elementary.
Thank you, Ben.
Good.
So,
you're looking for, again, a consensus that this is a list that we can work with for
right.
pursue further engagement.
Right. And if the public engagement that's outlined works, do you want to hold community workshop with a quorum of council? Do you want to just leave it as public hearings at council meetings in addition to like a Survey Monkey type of engagement?
I think whatever we can do to get the most public engagement that we can. Just because I think that's imperative on this stuff.
And one of the goals, I was not expecting you to start off like this, but one of the goals was to get this wrapped up by the end of the year. So again, if we're doing some of these projects, we can get them going next year.
Yeah.
Still a goal.
So if I can jump in, I live on School Street, and at least once, and I feel like twice, I've looked out my window and I've seen the road just full of water. It's like a river out there because the line had broken up above me. It's been a problem that needs to be fixed. And I'm speaking both as a council member. If I had to look at the project list as a whole, whether I lived on School Street or not, I would say that's a very important thing. But since as a member of the public, as a citizen of the town, I've experienced several water outages, and I've seen the water, the street turn into a river. That needs to be a high priority. We need to fix that.
And then, Leon, you're also saying that these are the costs that you have are the project itself. That doesn't necessarily mean, or is that what the allocation that you would think?
So for example, for the main D extension, I threw in roughly the city's portion. So it could be less than that.
Same thing.
Same thing with, all of those really. Those are estimated costs. You could fund less than that, and then we could find alternative funding for the project. So if you wanted, 200,000 to School Street, well, then we would use the other 200,000 from reserves. Knowing that, though, we might need to see when that project then falls into the schedule, when we would have enough reserves to
kind of like squeezing a balloon.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I like the list.
Michael Christie, comment?
No. Were you asking me for a comment? I was coughing, so I didn't.
Do you have any, do you like the list? Did you want to see something else?
Yeah. No.
Do you have any questions?
Nope.
I like the list.
All right.
Scott, one thing, some context about these different water and sewer projects. For the new council members, a couple of years ago, we finished our water plan and our sewer plan at the same time. And both of them called for spending a lot of money, but spending it in different ways. So with the sewer plan, we don't have a citywide requirement to connect. You only have to connect if you're within 300 feet. That means a lot of properties aren't connected. And we do have a requirement to connect to city water, and it's easier to run water lines. So the water system is this big in area, but the sewer system is only this big. And so the priorities for the first 10 years of the sewer system are to make those extensions out. So it's about the same size, serving the same area as the water system. and not to expand the water system in that time. So the water projects that you're seeing are largely these maintenance type of projects for existing lines, replacing existing AC lines, where the sewer project, like you just saw, involves more extension. So just one way to think about why these things are being presented in this way. I don't know if it helps or not.
I think it does. Thank you, Ben. Okay, good. All right, moving on to some voting. Like you're up now.
I forgot to put the number 1 next to the ecology design phase loan agreement amendment 3. This closes out the design phase of all of the construction that we're doing now. And so this will sets the payment schedule and closes out the contract. We did spend less than we thought we were. Yay! Which means we have to pay back less.
Okay, so where was the number 1 supposed to be at?
At the end of amendment 3,
This is
it's
first touch.
just, no.
Okay.
You know how the sewer plant update says that it's related to the sewer plant project, so it's a city priority list. I didn't put the city priority. This is related to the sewer project on the heading for the item. Yes, yes,
Not a first touch.
I got it.
yes. Mhm.
You ready for
Okay,
a
I would
motion?
move. Authorize. What's that?
Let Christie do it.
Yeah, let Christie.
Are you ready for a motion? I'd
We
like
are.
Go for it.
a motion to authorize the mayor to sign ecology loan WQ 2019 Steve PW 0044 Amendment 3.
Second.
First and a second, any further discussion? Roll call for the vote. Dave,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Christie,
Aye.
and Michael.
Aye.
Thank you. Leona?
Okay, personnel policy update. It's a big personnel policy for a little change, relatively. When we did our audit with the insurance company last year, it was on our fleet management. And one of the items that was identified was a ranking of evaluating the employee driving records once we obtained them. And that's what this policy does. It says, when we get your driving record, this is how we're going to evaluate it. And it provides clear and concise guidance on how to do it. And then it also provides the support for any potential disciplinary actions as a result of an adverse driving record result.
I'd like to make another motion to approve resolution 2022-390 revising the personnel policy.
I'll second.
First and a second, any other discussion?
Did
Roll
this
call for the
just,
vote.
I'm sorry, did this just come up because of the fleet insurance, or did we have an incident? Just.
No, there was no incident. Again, so our insurance does an audit every year and we get to choose the topic. And last year, I chose the fleet management. I think it was this year it's homeless police or fleet. So again, I'll choose the fleet management.
Right.
And they'll follow up on this policy, but it's also because it's a requirement. If I didn't add this if I didn't make the changes that were requested, then we have the potential to lose our liability insurance.
Got it.
But it was not driven by any incident.
Do we get to all of that? Do we get to the vote?
You have not voted yet.
Okay, roll call for the vote. Dave,
Aye.
Paul,
I think you said aye.
Aye. I was muted. Aye.
and Christie,
Aye.
and Michael.
Aye.
Thank you. Leona?
So the contract with Lancaster Mobley is for our transportation study. They are moving along on it, and right now the results, a majority of the projects that they have identified are along SR 14, We have a plan for a meeting next week to talk further about all of the projects that they're, or all of the concerns that they have listed based on traffic counts and accidents, and also work on what the community engagement plan will be with regards to these results and the identification of projects to move forward. And we're also working on a package to communicate with WashDOT on this and to get it on our Regional Transportation Council's plan as an identified list of potential projects, again, because it is mostly on SR 14 because of the traffic volume that happens on there. And because of all of that, and the schedule has been extended to basically the end of the year to hope to wrap this up is the goal. And they said they feel like it will be done by the summer. However, you know, if we put June, it would then need to be extended, but if we put December, it'll be done by June. So.
Questions, thoughts, concerns? Motion?
Yeah, motion to approve the contract amendment number 1 with Lancaster Mobley as presented.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion? Roll call for the vote. Dave?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Christie?
Aye.
And Michael?
Aye.
Thank you. Liana?
Okay, so one of the reasons why we were so successful with the transition of taking over the wastewater treatment plant was due to the support services and the contract that we had with Ronald Mueller. He was able to help us create the standard operating procedures for the treatment plant and walk us through how we can best maximize the efficiencies at our plant. He has agreed to continue to help us, and the contract that he initially had expired and was for a different scope of services, slightly different scope of services. This one has been modified just slightly, and the services are currently not to exceed $5,000. And I have it for the entire year. And again, depending on how the hire goes, he may be able to help us with bridge that gap for that level 2 operator. We can also reach out to other, there are 2 other prospects I have as well for potential services for that if needed.
And I'd like to say, for the sake of the new council members in particular, that the performance of the plant pre and post this consultant it was just night and day. Everything changed dramatically for the better.
And the big reason that we are in need of these services is that Carl was our level 2 operator. So because we don't have a level 2 operator on staff, we do need to solicit the services of, in this case, a consultant that can help us out with our requirements with the state.
He is also revamping the SOPs to a more scaled down version this is what the bare minimum of what you have to do to be compliant versus some of the other things that we were doing to, again, increase the efficiencies. Now we're in just compliance mode due to the short staff that we have. So he's working on revamping that and ensuring that we're doing everything we need to.
And then we can just dust off the old plan as we.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Go ahead, Michael.
Let's see, how about I motion to approve the agreement with Ronald Moeller Operations Services LLC for wastewater treatment plant support services for an amount not to exceed $5,000.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call for the vote. Dave,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Christie,
Aye.
and Michael.
Aye.
Thank you. Committee appointments.
That would gotta be you.
So this is there's a whole list of where the city participates, whether it's with staff or elected officials in various committees throughout the city and also within the county. So these are some suggestions or some thoughts about who might fill in. So now we have, did you highlight the ones that?
So I haven't followed up on the Board of Appeals positions that the Public Works Director filled that out. We also have a question as far as if we're not the building official, does that go through us or would that go through the county? And we haven't answered that question yet.
Okay, so do you have the ones that need filling on here?
No, they're all filled, but, well, let's see, the Boundary Review Boards, Community County Boundary Review Board, that is a citizen. And so we are still, I believe, needing someone to fill that position, as I believe he has moved out of the area. And then I have not approached the new owners of Riverside Lodge, which is renamed, and I forget the name, the new name.
Oh, they're not gonna keep the name?
No, they're not keeping the name. But we just need a new lodging representative on the Tourism Advisory Committee. We can also reach out to any other owners that have lodging facilities. Art Bliss.
Tom Sikora.
Thank you. Tom Sikora.
I'm unsure of this motion because we don't have committee appointments. Is that what I'm hearing? We're looking for a
There
committee
are.
appointments.
All committees are full. We just need to approve it.
Yeah, they're all full. You just need to approve it. And then if there are additional appointments after the fact that need to be filled, we can come forward then.
Okay, so I would like to approve the committee appointments as presented and discussed.
Make a motion. Make it a motion.
Oh, I thought I did. I'd like to make a motion to approve the committee appointments as presented and discussed.
A second.
First and a second, any other discussion? Roll call for the vote. Dave,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Christie,
Aye. Aye.
and Michael.
Aye.
All right. Dave. Is it my turn? It is your turn.
Okay, so, this is in regards to just for Michael and, Christie's information. This is in regards to the runoff that is on the west side of Foster Creek Road at the junction with, Rock Creek Drive. And, I've had a couple of phone calls on that. And so I went down and actually took a look at it when the water's really been running. And I brought a sample tonight. And it's too bad the other members aren't here because I'd be more than anxious to have them crack that open and smell it or to taste it.
I'm so sorry that I'm not there to do that, Dave.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm right here for you.
Tasting
the
it sounds great.
program- This sample was actually taken at the east side of Foster Creek Road where the culvert came out. And the thing that concerns me is in the report that I'm gonna see if I can open it up here, that we were able to get from all the testing that we did. Just for Christie's and Michael's information, the city went ahead and paid, what was it, Ben, about $1,500 for testing?
1,200 or so, yeah.
Yeah. And we did some testing. The concern that I have about the testing is where the location of the testing was done from. I've gone up there and looked at the site. I've looked at the photos that Ben produced. And it's actually right at the upper edge of where all of that bacteria starts. What I call bacteria, because it looks like, to me, it looks like bacteria, like if you went to Yellowstone and looked at one of the hot pools there. That's what it looks like to me. But having said that, and Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was right by that tree where you took that sample, correct? Yeah, he's nodding his head.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and it was not in a high flow water area because of the date that we did the testing. So my concern was that, okay, now that the water's flowing, go down and take a sample. And so that's what I did. This was a clean water bottle that I dumped all the water out of, and I got that sample. And when I first looked at it, I thought, well, there's nothing wrong with that. And I came back the next morning and looked at it, and there's all this stuff starting to form inside of it. And so I guess what my concern is where the sample was taken, and would we have had a different result if the water had been taken, for example, in the same area that I took this, which was well into that area where the all of the bacteria is. And so additional concern that I have is how far this is going, how far it's going downstream. And it's not just localized right there. It goes down the ditch for a long ways. I just have some real concerns about this. And I think there needs to be more investigation done on it. And I think that the county needs to step up and take the lead on this. And I think that needs to come from the city and some type of a memo to them or how we would do that, Mayor. But my feeling is that we need to make sure that the county understands that we feel it's still a concern and that we need to move forward. So that's where I'm at.
Dave, I read through those documents from the July meeting with the results. And what I got out of it, I don't know if I'm right, correct me if I'm wrong, is that runoff was iron bacteria that was harmless. But I see what you're saying about where the test was taken from. And like, would we get a different result if we did it right now? Like with having like serious runoff? Is that what the report said?
Initially, but one of the things about the Underwood Conservation District, when they helped analyze the report, at the end of their comment, they said to show that there's not adverse effects to downstream surface waters, in parentheses, Rock Cove, It may be worthwhile to conduct one additional sampling event during wet conditions when active seepage from the landfill area is evident. And I think that that is a case right now, especially with all of the water flow we have going on.
So we should do that without a water bottle though, like with an actual
You don't
sample.
like the way it tested in there, huh?
I don't believe that that was a clean water bottle.
I also read through that, Dave. The when this was done last time, when the testing happened, the report. I also talked to somebody down at the Corps of Engineers down, and they actually had, you know how you were saying, because you and I were talking after the last meeting about how that water sample you took changed color overnight, and that it, you know, seemed like it should be a problem. And basically what I was told was that they ran into this issue in one of the wells that they have down at Bonneville, and they had to basically clean it all out. It was destroying the pump and different things, but it wasn't a danger. It was naturally occurring. It wasn't something that was tied to a landfill or anything like that out there. So my thought was, reading through the report, that it sounded more like this was something that happens in different areas, not just because of the landfill seepage that's coming on. But again, I'm not against, you know, further testing. I want to make sure we're safe, but that's what I got out of it. And then I went and talked to some people. Like I said, I went down to the Corps and talked to some folks who've been down there for a long time. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Okay.
And Ben, is it fair to call this bacteria?
Yeah, the orange coloring is almost certainly from the bacteria. Just the summary of that last memo, we sampled something like 600 different analytes to see what was there. Almost all of them were non-detect, meaning they weren't present in the samples except for things that you would expect there, like suspended solids, organic carbon, nitrogen, and then this iron-related bacteria, which was extremely high on the sampling list. So what am I doing? I'm equivocating because, of course, we don't know everything that's in there, but the information that we have, that's a safe conclusion that, yeah, it's the bacteria that's coloring it orange.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but the question that's being raised is, should we sample it? Should we test it again formally during a high flow situation? Is that correct?
That's what I think we should need to do, or we need to send notice to the county that we feel that in order to safeguard the citizens of our city, the county needs to step up and take some action in regards to ensuring that the water that's coming through their landfill is not going to affect the city of Stevenson. And right now, from reading this report and from where the samples were taken, I don't believe that the water samples that were taken, and this is no offense to Ben, but were not in the area where we were able to get sufficient runoff through the landfill to be able to test it.
So Ben, can you provide a little bit of narrative to how we got to the point where the city decided to spend the money? It was a lot of finger pointing, right? When we said it was brought up as a concern.
Yeah.
And DO said, well, there you go. And the county said, well, there you go.
So the orange coloring there has been identified for a long time, and it's come up over the years, and the city did nothing over the years too. The most recent time it came up, we filed a report with Department of Ecology to get them on that, to have them hopefully do some testing. It falls into a hole with Department of Ecology because of the era of the landfill and the capping. All that was done prior to the Clean Water Act. And so the county doesn't have to do any ongoing monitoring of the landfills, and the capping didn't have to occur under the provisions that it would have to now. So this division of Department of Ecology that deals with landfills says, oh, that's pre-standard, and so that doesn't fall under our purview. And then this division of Department of Ecology that deals with surface waters says, oh, if we're suspecting it's coming from a landfill, then that's a point source and not a non-point source. And so it's not under our purview either. And that leaves nobody else. And so the city said, all right, let's bring some facts to this. The county had been hearing complaints about it too. They said, based on our knowledge, we suspect that this is iron-related bacteria. It's things that we've seen in other areas of the county and the state. And we're not going to do any verification of that assumption. We'll just leave it as it is. So city stepped in and said, okay, we'll try to verify or disprove that with the testing that we do. Did the test, we got the results that we got. It's one point in time for testing, and is that ever good enough? Probably not. So when this memo was created last year, there were 3 options for the council to consider: take no action, advocate for other agencies such as the county to do ongoing testing, or do our own, establish our own ongoing testing program. The council at that time said, take no action. Let's leave this alone.
How does it go, Ken? If we want to formally, or not even formally, we just write a letter, they can submit into record that the city would like, or how do we rattle a cage here?
It would be probably a letter coming from you. If the commissioner is asking for them to participate to
Further testing.
to help solve this issue. And I guess as Dave pointed out, that it sounded like the report was a little equivocal in that it said you'd benefit from a test during the high water flow. So that's maybe the angle you take. Here we have high water flow. This would be an opportunity to follow up, and we have certain council members. Something like that.
Okay.
So I guess my request then to the council is that we come up with some kind of a notification to the city or to the county
For me to sign.
to do that.
Is that an action that you would like to take as an entity? Okay, got a thumbs up, 2 thumbs up. Christie, thumbs up. Dave, thumbs up.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want that letter to be approved by council, or do you want to delegate that to the mayor to submit on your behalf?
I would be comfortable with the mayor.
As would I.
That's what he gets paid the big bucks. Thank you very much.
Okay. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Workshop.
So find ourselves in a similar situation due to COVID last fall.
Wow.
The workshop that we were planning on diversity, equity, inclusion was canceled. This workshop is best done in person. Do we want to try to hold it in March? The contract that we currently have was extended to March 31st with the hope.
Can you bring the 2 new council members up to speed on it?
Oh goodness, I'll try.
I was in the
feel like
meeting,
I already
by the
know
way.
what it's
Yeah,
stemming from.
I was sitting there when
Okay,
we talked
thank-
about this one last time.
I'm familiar.
Okay, thank you. So the question is, do we want to try to schedule something in March? Because I want to make sure that there's enough time to advertise and to get the public aware of a workshop that we will be holding so that they can attend. But I also need to coordinate it with the consultants and ensure Annie would be able to attend. I believe she gets back next week.
My concern is the uptick with the Omicron virus. And right now, just watching what's going on, because I'm still involved with the schools and all the sports programs going on. And everything that's getting canceled because how quick this thing is spreading. I would be concerned about doing it that quick.
I think it's too early.
So,
So
okay. Do you want me to extend the workshop through the end of the year and work on trying to schedule something?
Yes, I would prefer
Okay,
that.
okay.
yeah,
And what was the cost on that again, Leanna?
So I forget. 3,000,
4,000.
4,000, 3 to 5,000, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I
And
can,
this is for the public. It's not just us. This is for the public. to be
yes,
able to come
right.
in
It's
and-
basically a dialogue with the public and council on the on increasing diversity, equity, and inclusion within the city, and also within the confines of what the city specifically can do to promote that. And it will not be recorded. It will be an open public meeting, and we will have the different modalities. It will not be on YouTube because, again, it's for, we want to have engagement
Want interaction.
and interaction. The reason why it is going to be also remote is because we're required by law with the current emergency order and the emergency proclamation to have all of our meetings be hybrid if we have an in-person component. So I will talk with them and extend that and work with them on potential dates.
Thank you.
All right, Leanna, you're up.
Okay, so one thing that Mary mentioned earlier in the meeting was the reverse 911 with regards to the county emergency declaration. The city also issued an emergency declaration, but the emergency management department is not an office of the city. One thing that we can do though, and we have been looking at this for the past couple of months, is increasing our ability to notify the public in a way that isn't email, but is also a quick and responsive way. And this also can go two ways. So the public can initiate conversation with us and get information in a quick manner. And so that is where the Text My Gov services come in. And so there's information in your packet. I have to go down to that. On what they provide, and there'll be a widget or an icon on the city website that you can click and you can sign up. One way we can use it for is water leaks. We can input customer phone numbers and send a targeted text message to customers for any services that we're performing. For example, next week, we're going to be doing a water service, which is going to require some customers to be out of water. In addition to us phoning them and calling them and letting them know, on the day of or the day before leading up to that work being done, we can send them text messages letting them know when the water is on, when the water is off. So it would also save us time, staff time, in contacting people when the water comes back on. And it would provide an enhanced customer service to the.
So that's the key part, that the one of the key factors for me on this service is being able to be geo-specific. So if there's going to be water service where there's going to be outage or low pressure on Bone Road, somebody that's on the other side of town doesn't need to or even care. But the people that are affected, we should be able to target that message. So that was addressed with this proposal, is that, this geo-specific notification.
You can also it also allows the public to ask questions directly. So if they wanted to know when a council meeting is, they can text, council to this number, and then it will provide them a link to our council website or the next meeting. And it had, there's a series of prompts that it follows as well to get you the information you need. You can report issues as well. So if you want to report a pothole in the road, you can text it and it will ask you again, a follow-up questions. You can submit, you can take a photo and submit it with that as well. And then the city can take action on that and also communicate with that customer as well on the status of that.
So my interest is compliance with Public Records Act. So are these text messages retained by the city or are they retained
So
by the
it's, so
vendor?
on the city's front, it is all a web interface and it's retained within that interface.
So what about retention?
It covers it as well.
Okay,
Yes.
and searchability?
I believe so. When I talked with them, they showed me some. When they showed me the program, it's been a month and a lot has happened since then.
So that's one thing I just want to
Right,
be
right.
sure to follow up on because
Yeah.
if there's a record request, we have to be able
Yes.
to search those records.
Mhm.
And then retention, let's double check that retention is whatever is called for by the state and no shorter and no longer. Because we don't want to retain an excessive length of time and then create additional search efforts
Right.
if we get a records request.
I can, have you done any checking with the county in regards to what they're using? Because just to bring you up to speed, reverse 911 is actually a copyrighted phrase.
Mhm.
And the county got into some really hot water with the owner of that phrase. And we were told to immediately do not use that, cease and desist using that phrase. When we were setting up Region 4, the region purchased a program through federal funding. And the county, Skamania County, has access to that. And it was to include all of the incorporated cities.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you have talked with John Carlson or Dave Brown about that, but 5 years ago when I was still working as the undersheriff, that was available and it was geolocated to send out emergency messages.
But that's going to be
Now-
specific to emergency management.
Exactly,
Right,
that's just what I was gonna
right.
say. That does not go into the detail of what we're talking here. So what you have here is a much more useful product as far as the city goes.
And from what we were seeing for the emergency declaration, there wasn't anything to notify the public about for our recent emergency declaration. It was mostly to facilitate contracts and handling that emergency from a city standpoint.
And
So,
And so one of the problems of implementing something like this is a lot of people don't have landlines anymore. They have cell phones. Some of those cell phone numbers originate in New York or wherever. So they have to sign up in order to be able to get the information. So even though we know an address, like up on Bone Road, if we don't have his phone number locked in, we can't send him a message. So that's one of the drawbacks to a program like this is how much buy-in are we going to get from our citizens to do this?
well, and the way I look at it is we try to communicate in a myriad of different ways to get
Absolutely.
all of the customers that we have in the best possible manner.
Absolutely.
And it will, so this does come with materials to solicit those numbers and to let people know what you have. We're also just trying to get people's emails and phone numbers updated in our utilities for when we do have a water outage or when they do have a water leak, to just contact them in general. So we are in the process of doing that outside of this project. We can do it together as like, not just to call you in case there's water leak. We can also send you notifications.
And I would hope that for $4,200 for the first year and then $3,000 for each additional year, we're gonna get more than 100 people onto this. Because that's a lot of money to be spending for just a few people.
Mhm.
And so I think we need to really need to watch that.
Well, and we can use some traditional methods too. You know, we add in the paper.
Oh, sure,
put something
sure,
with
yeah,
there. We've
yeah.
got a newsletter coming out.
Yeah.
We can include it on the water bill.
Yep.
There's multiple ways to solicit that.
Yes.
We also
And
have
If it's
a
not
lot of,
successful, we review it, right? I mean, it's not like we are locked in for 5 years if we sign up for the first year. So we look at it after the first year and go, we only had 25 people use this all year long. And we don't have any numbers. We had this water break. We couldn't get a hold of anyone with it. And we're a year into paying $3,000. We're not going to want to keep that going forever. So that's something that could be reviewed as far as I know, it's a year by year, correct?
this contract is a 2-year initial contract and then it's year by year. So it's,
So we're into it for
Sure.
7,200.
no, you're into it for 4,400.
Says first year 4,200 and
sorry.
ongoing 3,000.
Right, ongoing is 3,000, so sorry, it'd be
7,200.
yeah. sorry.
Yeah.
It's been a long day.
I'm willing to go for it. I mean, I would
Yeah,
just hope the citizens step up and, embrace it.
Yeah, I support
could
it.
also
And
be
we
a
just
way
need to make sure we get the word out. Right?
I
We
was
need to
gonna say,
budget
they can
in some way
also
to do
send it-
that.
Yeah. And if we, we can use it as a way of saying, hey, there's a survey going on to get input on this matter as well. There's a public hearing tonight on this or workshop on that. So again, it's trying to get community engagement.
I think Rob Ferris is raising his hand. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rob.
Thanks. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to chime in from the emergency services side here because I think we need to do our messaging very carefully if you guys elect to do this new communication tool. What they use in addition to the quote unquote reverse 911, like Dave said, that's a different system from, say, a text notification. What the county uses right now is a product called HyperReach, and you opt in with your text, with your cell phone number, and I believe email as well. That is the preferred method for emergency services. If there's a rapid reason to get information out, we've used it on wildfire level 3, level 2, level 1 evacuation status stuff. Stuff that you need that's urgent, that is in a true emergency. You can also utilize reverse 911, which is probably more geo-located than, say, this HyperReach stuff. So like you could say if there's something in Stevenson that's critical, you would get a broader reach with the HyperReach link. And then if you needed to evacuate Shepherd Road, you could do reverse 911. So from the emergency services standpoint, we've all concentrated on promoting signing up with the HyperReach program that the county and the sheriff administer. The point of communication during the emergency comes from the dispatch center and or EOC if they open that up. So when we're messaging to try to get people to sign up for the communication tool that is being described, I just want to make sure that we're not gonna throw all of our eggs into the basket of this is gonna be used for emergency notifications. That makes sense.
I guess I'd be curious, Rob, to see what kind of success you've had in getting people to sign up for that service.
Yeah, I think the sheriff would be the good resource for that. You know, he is our law enforcement officer for the city under the contract, so he should be able to get those numbers for us. I know from the standpoint of just doing the communication side on the emergency services that it's kind of hard to get people to sign up for anything until you're in the midst of an emergency, and then people are wondering why they're not getting notified. And it's a constant campaign that we do at the county level from the emergency services and fire districts. And even I'm a part of a regional fire prevention co-op, which we drive communication and information distribution in the five Gorge County regions too. And we struggle with getting people to engage. So I love the idea of having the text messaging from the city. You know, if you have an issue on, say, my street, if my street's having a water outage, that's great. But I just want to make sure that we're careful on the marketing of this new system. So we're not there. You can gain good engagement or you can create confusion, because now do you sign up for the hyper reach, or do we sign up for the City of Stevenson text portal or whatever we're going to call it? And then what if we're not in sync on the emergency side of it? So
yeah, Rob, I was not planning on using this for any emergencies that would be managed by the emergency management department. I do see value though in community, like if we do go forward with this, messaging that this project is for, like you stated, water outages. I will not use the word emergencies in the city contact, but we can also solicit, hey, sign up for this if you want to be notified for these things. Sign up for this if you want to be notified of emergencies. So we can try to solicit that information at the same time as well.
yeah, it sounds great. I'm even stuff spinning in my head from just prevention activities and good engagement from the fire department side on projects and stuff too. So that's just my input. I just wanted to bring that to light, that I hope if we do this, just make sure that we do our marketing very carefully so we don't overrun what we're trying to push countywide for emergency notifications. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
So I guess the big questions are, yeah, what is engagement? That'd be some good numbers to get. And then to Ken's point, searchability and retention. Not so much that it is retained, but for the proper amount of time.
So can we table this and make a motion on it when we get numbers, more information?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you.
In general, I think this is a good idea.
I do as well. I like it.
Fill in a couple gaps.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So included in your packet, we have some informational items that come typically, well, once a month for you to peruse. Next up, administrator and staff reports. So what do you have for us, Ben?
Notices about Department of Ecology projects are probably on my mind the most. So the shoreline management program was locally approved by the Stevenson City Council in December of 2018. It then went to Department of Ecology for their review and approval. They expect to give us their approval document or their approval subject to required and recommended changes within the next few days. I've heard that before from them, and so I don't know that it will happen, but when it does happen, we'll schedule a meeting with the Shoreline Advisory Committee. They'll review all of the recommended changes to see if that's something that they agree with and would recommend City Council inclusion of in the document. And when they do their review, it'll come to you for final approval. At that point, during both of those processes, the advisory committee and the city council will only be considering those required changes, which are obviously required, and the recommended changes. So we've come a long way to get to this point, and it's almost there. The next couple months, it should hit your agenda. The project for Columbia Street and relocating that is moving forward. We've got the grant agreement in place with Department of Ecology, and we'll be doing the outreach and site investigation soon in the first quarter of this year, and moving that project forward. And then the other one is a grant that we were just notified that we applied for at the end of last year and were notified of an award for. So we've got $72,000 to develop a public access and trails plan for the shoreline areas. Those are all the areas adjacent to Rock Creek, Rock Cove, and the Columbia River. So that'll be a really nice project that we'll do. And the intent of that plan is really to set us up for a program. So you're not going to just have trails materialize. You're not going to have public access sites on the Columbia River materialize. You're going to need to plan for those, budget for those, spend money to make that happen. And so this will set you on that course to know what sort of money it's going to take. It's something that can be wrapped directly into that parks plan that was talked about for the courthouse plaza. It's something that we need. And so we'll align what we do so that it meets all the planning requirements for that parks plan, and it'll just be a component of that in the end. So all those are pretty exciting. The last two are big projects that still involve a lot of work. The first one was a big project that involved a lot of work before, but we're almost done with that. The development so far, it's January. It hasn't really picked up yet. We'll expect that to pick up more in the end of February and March, when people start getting their ideas and their permits submitted. So it's a good time to get working on those other projects.
Awesome.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you, Ben.
Lana?
So I met with the county to talk about the community development, or the contract that we have for building inspectors. And with the transition from Tim Elsey to Alan, we haven't set up a meeting. I haven't confirmed for him to give a presentation. So I'll talk with him to see if he's available for the next meeting or possibly the March meeting. So they haven't shown up. It's because of other things in the transition and everything. But he did give me the information regarding permits for last year. And so last year they processed 75 total permits. So that's a combination of remodels as well as single family residences and commercial. And there are 22, so included in that 75 are 22 new single family residences.
Wow.
Yes.
That's good.
Yes. So it's been picked up, and Chenadier is going to be moving forward with the phase 2 and phase 3. And I believe that's about 40 new lots as well. And from what I've been hearing is they're all sold.
And if you go walk up there.
Well,
yeah.
At the next council meeting, we'll be providing and it's been included on a couple of the draft agendas and then removed because it's been challenging to try to complete a total rewrite of the procurement policy. And it will be on the next agenda. part of that is to update our policy to changes that have been made. And there are a lot of dollar value limitations that have been changed since that policy was created. And so we're updating it based on that, but also to flow better with how we are now doing things. And once that policy is updated, we are also planning on moving forward with doing the fire strategic plan contract. So we've gone through the process to get on a piggybacking group for that contract. Rob can talk more about it if he would like, but the expectation is then we will get on contract with the consultants that he mentioned before for a strategic plan in February, late February, early March.
Good. And Rob, if you're on there, is that with that group that Don Bivens is associated with?
Yeah, it's the same one. Dawn actually retired last year, which was who I was working with prior. So yeah, that's the same group.
Thank you.
And then the biggest thing is we have all the interviews scheduled for all the positions, and it'll be done by next Friday. The interviews will be done by next Friday. So we'll see.
Before the next snowstorm.
Well, the interviews will be done before the next snowstorm. We are working on trying to hire as quickly as we can, and also ensure that they are a good hire for the city. And that is all I can think of at the moment.
Thank you. All right, so every meeting we sign the checks. There is a register for, you can look through the vouchers. So another set of eyes. So that if you do have any questions on how the money is being spent, this is your opportunity, because this is the money being spent right in front of your eyes. So we typically, we do vote to approve the vouchers. We vote to pay the bills. We also need 3 signatures to go with that vote. So any of the 3 of you want to come down to City Hall and peruse the register, then and sign that you think that this is a good idea, then I would encourage that. But in the meantime,
We could also do that electronically. I can scan those and you can sign them.
I'd move to approve the vouchers as presented.
A second.
we have a first and a second. Any discussion? Roll call for the vote. Dave,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Aye.
Christie, and Michael.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, so this is in this part of the meeting. If there's anything for the greater good that any of you or myself would like to share, this is the time. So does anybody have anything to share?
I'd just like to thank the council for approving the mayor to contact the county on that water issue. Thank you.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Anybody else? Great. All right, and then next up is, are there any items that you would like to see on the next agenda? Specifically.
I don't have any.
And always feel free to reach out to.
Right, just so the new council members understand, this isn't your only opportunity to add something to the agenda. Council members have the authority to add items to the agenda until the agenda is published typically. So you just contact either the mayor or Liana to request something to be added. But this is an opportunity.
Not the.
Right.
All right. I will move to adjourn the meeting. 8:14.
Second. Third.